Alright, your General Electric GP9 Locomotive Operating Manual. We're on Section 3, Location and Correction Difficulties on the Road. This section provides a check with the calling with the operator's attention for the troubles which must be frequently encountered on the road, which can be quickly remedied by eliminating many delays. No attempt is made to explain the general operation function, equipment of the locomotive, or other such information referred to other sections of the manual. General. Safety devices automatically protect the equipment with the case for the fault of the operation. Most of the component with the general with the protection with the unloading of the preventing a loading of the diesel engine so the locomotive loses its pulling power. The locomotive can lose its power when the diesel engine is still running or stopped. The exemption for the hot engine alarm does not reduce the engine load with the speed with the troubleshooting check chart at the end of the section. Pages 313 and 314 outline possible cause for the troubleshoot with the locomotive sudden loss of power with the diesel engine running stop. When the trouble is extreme with the general location type of the difficulty with attain, other indicate with the running of the alarm bell, lighting of the one more signal light, the trouble units with the signal lights located in the rear cab wall, figure 3-1, and the engine control manual 3 or 3-2, the RS, hot engine red, boiler stopped, green, alternator failure, blue, oil, yellow, ground relay white, pneumatic control switch white, and it shows the wall of the operating cab. All circuit breakers with the switch for the engine and control panel, figure 3-2 with the trip of the open at 15 amp, except for the control and the fuel pump generator fuel switch with our 30 amp circuit for the circuit breaker, which switches on closed when the up position, off and down. If the circuit breaker overload trips over the surface of the restore for the first placing the switch fully off, then moving it to on, the alarm bell ringing and alarm signal light will indicate with the illuminated with the unit effect with the red hot engine indicate the oil engine water. Figure 3-2 show the engine control panel. Temperature of the 208 degrees Fahrenheit with the hot engine alarm does not reduce the engine load speed, but the alarm signal will not stop until the temperature returns to the normal. In this case, with the hot alarm, proceed with this 12 with the isolate with the engine. Isolate with the engine will not stop with the alarm bell. The temperature of the must return to normal. 2 with the check with the engine cooling water tank correct level. The figure 3-3 with it is in sufficient water with the system and the allow with the engine to run at idle speed. 3 AC cooling fan connectors must be connected with the 3-4 and see with the shawl shutters open with the closed check with the position shut-off valve in the air supply with the shut-off the magnet valve with the control circuit and fuel pump circuit breakers must be on. And it shows figure 3-3 show the bigger cooling water level. Figure 3-4 show the AC cooling fan connectors green. The boiler stop indicates steam generator stop alarm and the light with the bell with the turn boiler switch off. The figure 3-5 is correct with the steam generator troubleshooting chart section 6. Figure 3-5 show the boiler switch and it has a fill off then run. Blue alternator failure. This alarm indicates that the alternating current system has failed with the traction mode with the blower of the radiator cooler fans have stopped with no voltage relay with it open with the de-energized figure 3-6 of the engine speed load equivalent is automatically reduced the equivalent number 1 throttle with the position of the engine stop with the AC system fails within the throttle run 5 or 6 placing the isolation switch and start with the top alarm signals. And most alternator failures alarms are false since any alarm occurs with the engine stop with any of the reason for the online with the alternator failure alarm engine stop. Always isolate and check cause for the engine stopping. Check with the overspeed trip of the B throttle must be in. Stop position C fuel flow through with the fuel return sight glass before trying to start with the figure 3-7 and start with the engine shut down with no indication of the alternator failure with the other alarm indicate if they are present with the alternator failure alarm. They must be also checked before with the starting of the engine. A true with the AC failure is evident with the blue light with the alarm bell on which the engine running isolation switch and run. To correct the true AC failure proceed as follows. Isolate with the engine check auxiliary generator field switch. Circuit breakers must be on the on, figure 3-8. Check the alternator field. Circuit breaker must be on, figure 3-8. Auxiliary generator field output. Fuse must be good in figure 3-9. To check with the open auxiliary generator field night switch. Remove the fuse and test and feed with the test clips. All electronic cabinet. If the defect with the insert with the good spare with the fuse and close with the auxiliary generator with the night switch. No with the engine run circuit. The breaker with the off. The pneumatic control light on. The pneumatic control switch open. The alternator failure alarm signal are inoperative. Yellow loop oil, low oil. The tripping of the governor. Low oil alarm, figure 310, dual engine low oil pressure, high oil section will always stop the engine and the Yellow indicating light with the flash on. The alarm bell will also ring in position switch if the run position shows the figure 3 seventh of the overspeed trip and fuel flow check. If you're over the trip to set at top 12 o'clock, and then 6 o'clock manual shift layer, and then 9 o'clock fuel flowing glass through glass but not through best side. At 11 o'clock low oil button push that. Figure 3-8 circuit breaker to the electric cabinet. To correct the proceed, travel to place the isolation switch and start. 2 the reset the oil trip button. Figure button 3-9 battery switch panel. 3 check the engine lubricating oil, leveling engine oil dipstick. Figure 3-11 show the low oil trip push button reset. Figure 3-10 and then 3-11 oil pan dipstick. Figure 11. Check for the broken, crack the oil lines, restart the engine, check the oil pressure must be minimum of 6 psi at idle. Do not repeatedly start the engine if the low oil button keeps shutting the engine down. White ground relay. When a ground relay on the engine control panel with the flashes on, it indicates that the ground relay located with the electrical cabinet has tripped. The white indicator pointing to the red dot. Figure 3012 with the engine speed with the load automatically reduce the idle or stop if the throttle is running 5 or 6. The ground relay trips with the white ground relay light open on the engine control panel. Figure 32 the one flashes on with the alarm. Figure 312 shows the ground relay with a reset button and the yellow red light. Where the bell will ring with the isolation switch for the run position engine run circuit with the breakers on. With the correct the isolation engine with the reset for the ground relay. Start with the engine. The necessary play with the engine online with the ground relay contact. Can use the trip reset with the stop alarm. Leave the engine update unisolated. Under no condition with repeated wheel slip action or ground relay action should be unit and be isolated allowed to remain consistent unless it is certain that all the wheels are rotating freely. Or additional safety devices, the pneumatic control switch, the PC switch, or the switch for the air-operated electrical switch. This is the tripped only when it is a penalty or emergency with the air brake application. When tripped with the white with the control panel with the figure 3-2 with the wheel flash on, the alarm bell will not ring, and the speed load automatically reduces equivalent throttle with position number 1. The PC switch tripped open with the throttle in the run 5 or 6 switch. Engine would stop. The automatic reset with the pneumatic control switch is closed with the throttle is idle. Place automatic brake valve in the lap. Place foot on safety control foot pedal. Place foot on safety control foot pedal. If used, wait until the application builds up with the normal pressure. Listen to the exhaust open or watch the PC switch light. If the emergency application with the PC switch does not reset with itself with the automatic brake lap, move the brake valve with the running. The PC switch set when the light. PC switch is set when the light goes out. Reset train control. If used, place automatic brake valve in the running position. 303 engine overspeed trip. If the engine speed should be exceeded approximately 310 RPM to the overspeed device, figure 313 located on the front end of the engine trip. Stop the engine, preventing the indicator ejector of the injection fuel into the cylinders. Alright, the alarm bell with the blue light will come on with the engine stop with the man while on this line with the overspeed trip. It must be latched in the set position before the engine is going to be restarted. 304 full fuel flow with the proper operation, good flow of fuel clear and free with the air bubble should be indicated with the fuel return site glass. Figure 314 indicated with the centered bronze filter assembly. Okay, if the fuel now not flowing through with the return site glass, check with the fuel pump motor. If the motor stopped, check with the fuel pump. Circuit with the breaker of the electrical cabinet must be on when the control fuel with the pump. The circuit breaker must be on. Circuit control knife switch and with the main battery switch must be closed with the four with the loose cable connections to the motor if the pump is running but the fuel is not pumped. Check with the 1 the fuel supply, 2 with the emergency fuel cutoff valve, 3 and a suction leading into the pump, 4 suction side with a dual fuel filter, and 5 slipping coupling at the fuel pump. Figure 314 shows the fuel sight glass, the return sight glass, and the 45-pound sight glass. 305 emergency fuel cutoff pilot valve. Pulling any of the one of the 3 emergency fuel cutoff pilot valve pull rings will shut off the fuel supply with the fuel pump once located in the rear cab. Wall behind the engineer on each side of the locomotive near the fuel tank filler cap. The valve is located at the inside of the compartment, the locomotive front with the center of the tank action with the valve with the shown with the figure 315 with the reset with the push on the valve yoke with the push rod with the extension which can be reached from the right side of the unit, pushing on this push rod as far forward as possible. Reopen the valve 308, control air pressure with the 4 with the satisfactory operation, pneumatic operator with the control and contactor switch use control circuit with the electrical control air with the pressure gauges on the rear wall of the cab indicate with 90 plus or minus 3 pound with the pressure regulator figure 316. It's located with the electrical cabinet array with the lower of the pressure chamber, the adjustment on the top of the regulator, a drain cockle provided with the bottom of the regulator draining moisture. Figure 316 for the control air regulator. Or correction of the difficulty 307, the engine goes idle, ground may relay might be tripped. No voltage relay might be open, but the blue light will be on. PC switch shall be tripped. The control air fuel pump circuit breaker on the engine main control panel might be off. The engine run circuit breaker on the engine control stand might be off. The isolating switch might be in start. 308 engine stopping. Throttle must be in the stop position. Low oil pressure between the governor might be out. The running and overspeed device might have the trip. The no voltage relay might have it open with the throttle and run 5 or 6. Ground relay might have the trip on the run throttle on the runner 5 or 6. Engine run circuit breaker engine control panel might have been tripped off when the throttle is running 5 or 6. Pneumatic control switch might have tripped off the throttle on the runner 5 or 6. Fuel pump circuit breaker in the electrical cabinet might be off. Control fuel pump circuit breaker on the control panel might be off. 10. Emergency fuel cutoff valve with the runner of the locomotive may be tripped. 3.9. How to start the engine. If the engine has been stopped with a considerable period of time on the cylinder, it should be tested for the fuel and water accumulation before starting with the engine. And see with the article for 316 with the place with the throttle and idle with the reverse level of the neutral, place isolation with the start position. 3. Place auxiliary generator fuel for the alternator fuel for the fuel pump circuit with the breaker for the electronic cabinet with the on position closed all the knife switches, electrical cabinet 5 with the engine control panel in place for the control and the fuel pump with circuit breaker with breakers on the on position. 6. After allowing allowing a few seconds for the fuel to flow through the return sight glass before figure 314 solidly press. The start button should hold until the engine starts. Figure 317 show the starting the engine, start and run and start button. If the engine failed to start with a 15-second rotation, check for the possible trouble. Listen under troubles listed under articles 310 and 311 before the engine trying to start with the engine. So after a long time on the loop, oil pressure for the up to play with the isolation switch and run position. Place engine run circuit with the breaker on the engine control panel in the on position. If the engine does not rotate with when start buttons pressed, control of the fuel pump with the circuit breaker is on the engine control panel must be on. Isolation start switch must be on. 400 ampere starting fuse must be good. Main battery switch and the control knife switch and the electrical cabinet must be closed. 311 the engine rotates does not start when the start button is pressed. Low oil pressure button on the governor must be pressed and the engine overspeed must be set. Fuel pump circuit breaker and electrical cabinet must be on. Emergency fuel cutoff switch must be tripped. See the fuel oil supply is adequate. 312 if the engine is not with the speed of the engine up when the engine throttle is open. The control of the fuel pump, the circuit breaker with the engine man control panel must be on with the engine run circuit breaker. Engine man's control panel must be on. The isolation switch must be in the run position. PC switch must be in the trip position. The left ground relay must not be tripped. The no voltage relay must be open. Control knife switch in the electrical cabinet must be closed. 313 engine speed of the locomotive does not move when throttle is open. The reverse level must be in the either forward, reverse position. Reverse drum switch must be not locked. The neutral general field switch. Breaker must be on. There must be on a 90 pound plus or minus 3 per psi. The control air pressure select lever must be in number 1 position. 6 handbrakes and air brakes must be released. 7 80 ampere battery fuse field must be good. 314 battery ampere show the continual discharge. Battery charging contact located with the electrical cabinet must be closed. 150 or 250 ampere auxiliary generator battery charging fuse must be good. Auxiliary generator field circuit breaker and electrical cabinet must be on. Auxiliary generator knife switch of the electrical cabinet must be closed and show the battery ammeter. Alright, 315 compressor control of the air compressor automatically govern the normal. Keep at the main pressure of the 130 to 140 psi of the balloonist. Keep at the trouble of the normal position. Even the valve with figure 319 may be chained with the shown with the manually load, unload of the air compressor. And then show the cylinder test. Each of the cylinders equipped with the test valve with 320 and with the purpose of the testing with the training fuel. Show the compressor under load with the compressor under load valve with the normal, manual unload, manual load with the run main reserve with the normal. And then the cylinder test valve. Each cylinder is equipped with the test valve figure 320. Purpose of the testing of the fuel of the water accumulation. Some of the prior of the start of the engine has been shut down a considerable period of time. Make the test. Remove the 400 ampere starting fuse. The open all the cylinder test valve with approximately 3 full turn with the use of the engine for jacket tool. Jacking tool with the rotate of the engine, complete with the revolution liquid with the discharge from the cylinder with the investigator did not close with the cylinder test. Valves replace 400 ampere starting fuse in the start engine in its usual manner. If the engine running with a cylinder test valve is heard by leaking with the engine should be stopped, the end of the valve should be tightened. 320 cylinder test valves, and they're right on the side of the motor. Alright, your GP9 troubleshooting. Check chart with the locomotive loses power but does not move with the diesel engine running. You have the engine speed with the when throttle is open. And then you have the engine speed, we'll go engine speed when throttle is open, the generator fuel switches off, the reversal level, the neutral, reversal zone says electrical cabinet located, locked in neutral, selector level to go off with control air pressure flow, control air pressure flow, 80 ampere battery fuel fuse burned out, and some of the brakes set. Alright, locomotive loses power, does not move with the diesel engine running, the engine does not speed up when the throttle is open, the ground relay, triple the isolation switch of the engine is in start, the engine run switch is off, the control fuel pump switch is off, the pneumatic control switch light is on, the no voltage relay light is on, the auxiliary generator field switch is off, the alternator field switch is off, the auxiliary output fuse burned out, or 7 the control knife switch, and 8 loose governor cable. Additional safety devices no affecting loose locomotive loss of power, not affecting locomotive loss of power. Hot engine alarm, cooling water level low. AC cooling fan, contactors open, shutters not open, steam boiler, stop their alarm, motor overload, twist, stack, switch, trip, coil blowdown valve open, see section 6. Trouble locomotive loss of the power does not move, diesel engine stop, the cause of the which stop the only with throttle 5 or 6, the ground relay, trip, the no voltage relay, de-energized, DC actuated, engine run switch is tripped open. Locomotive loses power, it does not move. Diesel engine stop valve with the stop of the engine off the throttle position. Engine overspeed with the governor low oil with the throttle with the top position, lack of fuel. And from lack of fuel, you have the fuel motor pump stop, 30 ampere fuel pump switch off, the control fuel pump switch off, the control knife switch off, the main battery switch out. Loose fuel pump coil. From the lack of fuel, you have fuel pump motor running, no fuel supply, engineering, emergency fuel cutoff strip, clog suction of the filter, clog cylinder strip, bronze filters, low fuel pump coupling, 6 broken fuel suction line. Section 4, cooling and lubricating oil, fuel, and oil and air systems.